Thank you for watching. Subscribe on Deceived Husbands for more stories. A lot of people have been there at some point in their lives. They make a small change in their plans, and within a few days, their lives are turned upside down. We don't realize the consequences when these decisions are made, but later we come to understand their significance. In my case, it was deciding to look up an old school friend. I was about to go on one of my rare trips up country for my employer to Sheffield. I mentioned in the pub one night that I had to spend the following week in Sheffield. Sheffield is probably a nice town if you know it, but being dropped into these places unexpectedly, it can take a week to find out where the decent nightlife is, by which time I'd be long gone. Sam, one of my longtime friends from way back when we were at school, told me another of our old school crowd, Mark Lewis, was living in Sheffield and suggested I look him and his wife Lisa up. Now, Lisa was a name that brought back some really happy memories for me. Lisa Parker, as she was back then. I definitely remembered her from school, the girl who was most likely to, or more like the girl who definitely would. I think she took most of the guys' cherries, but unfortunately, not mine. I was an early starter in that game and had more than a few enjoyable afternoons in Lisa's company when we bunked off school together. Poor old Mark had drawn the short straw on that one. He got Lisa in the club, and let's be honest here, Mark was the poor guy who had taken the fall for it. He finished up doing the manly thing and marrying our Lisa. Yep, that's what men did in those days. You stood by your responsibilities. Still, from what I'd heard, they were very happy together, and Lisa's wandering ways were all in the distant past. Sam, who had kept in touch with Mark and Lisa, said they had at least half a dozen children, which wasn't surprising to me, knowing Lisa's love of procreation. Well, I don't think she was ever that keen on the idea of actually having kids, but she sure did like the preliminaries. Apparently, they moved up to Sheffield shortly after they got married, when Mark had been offered a good job up there. That is probably why I didn't remember seeing them for years. What harm could it do to meet up with a couple of old school friends, I thought. No, I wasn't thinking I might get lucky with Lisa again. I was a happily married man. So a week or so before I left for my trip, I gave them a call to let them know I was coming. It was then that I made what was to prove to be an eye-opening but ultimately disastrous decision. Mark and Lisa insisted that I stay with them whilst I was in town, and I acquiesced. On my arrival at their house, I realized I had made a mistake. Both the once gorgeous Lisa and Mark had turned into a couple of real barrels, about as wide as they were tall. Yeah, they were pleasant enough, but they were so damned boring. Christ, their life seemed to revolve around their kids, the church, and bloody bingo. Mind, Lisa was one great cook. I was damn glad I was only staying for 5 days as it was. I must have put on quite a few pounds that week. Anyway, we spent a few evenings talking about old times. I was surprised at the long list of guys that Lisa asked me if I knew what had happened to. I know that if I had been Mark, I would have gotten at least a little annoyed because I knew that most of the list were guys who had sampled Lisa's charms at one time or another, but Mark didn't appear to bat an eyelid. It was on the Thursday evening that my life started to turn. When Lisa wasn't asking me about what I knew about this guy or that, the pair of them spent most of the time telling me about their kids, of whom they were very proud. It was on that Thursday evening that the worst fate that can befall a houseguest befell me. About 8:00, just after Lisa put the twins to bed, Mark got out the bloody projector and spent the whole evening showing me his old home movies of their kids. I think I was in that daze we all fall into after watching someone else's home movies for several hours. I was acting my heart out, trying to at least look and sound vaguely interested, while Mark and Lisa told tales of holidays long past. Mind you, in some of the older films when Lisa still had her figure, she looked good in those tiny bikinis she wore back then. I quietly attacked the bottle of rum I had purchased that day to dull the senses. But then it happened. A scene came on the screen that made me sit up and take notice. Mark and Lisa both noticed my sudden interest as I nearly jumped out of my seat. "What's up, Pete?" Lisa asked. "Have you seen someone you recognize?" I bleeding well sure had. Mark, can you run the film back a bit? I asked in a panic-struck voice. Mark stopped the film and then ran it back until I asked him to stop. Exactly when did you say this film was taken? I inquired. 10 years ago in Brighton, Mark replied. Why, do you recognize someone? Yeah, that couple in the background. The woman with the blonde hair looks pretty familiar. One hell of an understatement. That woman was Julie, my bloody wife. But I wasn't about to tell Mark and Lisa that. Oh, those two, Lisa commented. They were a really nice couple. Americans, weren't they, Mark? Well, at least I think he was. She didn't say very much to anyone, did she, Mark? They were a real love-struck pair, hanging all over each other all the time. Hey, Mark, aren't there some more shots of them at the party night? Now that did get interesting. As usual, Lisa didn't give Mark a chance to get a word in edgeways. I had gathered that that was how conversations with these two normally went. Mark ran the film on for a few minutes. The picture changed from the hotel's swimming pool area to what was obviously the ballroom. The same couple appeared in the background again, only this time they were dancing, but slowly the film began to concentrate more on them as they got a little, well, putting it politely, amorous on the dance floor. I was by then having a little trouble breathing. It ain't every day you see folks behaving like that in a Brighton hotel, Mark laughingly commented. I just had to get it on film. He's a real pervert sometimes, Lisa cut in. You wait until we get to the videos Mark took out in Spain. You've never seen so many tiny bikinis in your life. I think Mark paid the kids to stand near the girls wearing the smallest ones just so he would have an excuse to film them. I'm afraid I wasn't really listening to Lisa as I watched my wife doing just about everything except have sex with the guy on the dance floor. His hands were everywhere they shouldn't be in a public place. I thought back. Mark had said that this particular film had been taken about 10 years before. It was 10 years ago that my company had sent me out to India where they were setting up a new manufacturing plant. I had been away for nearly 7 weeks that summer, and during that time Julie's parents had taken the children away with them on holiday for a fortnight. I remembered that there were a few days when the home phone was apparently out of order. Julie was forced to call me in Mumbai from a public phone because I couldn't get through to her at the house. Pete, are you all right? Lisa said. You've gone a funny color. That woman, can you remember her name? I asked. No, sorry, I can't. Can you remember, Mark? You spoke to them a few times. I think his name was Clayton or something like that. No, hang on, it was Clinton, like Clint Eastwood. But I don't recall what her name was. Funny that, what with them being just married and everything. I don't recall him ever mentioning her name. I never spoke to them when she was around. They were too busy, if you get the idea. You know what it's like. They were obviously just married and on their honeymoon. One sexy little woman, isn't she? I bet she nearly killed him in bed at night. She really did get turned on. To be honest, it was getting a bit embarrassing until the hotel manager asked them to cool it down a little. It was no good, I had to tell them. Sexy she sure is, but there's the problem. She's my bloody wife. Oh, Mark said. Oh, bugger, it can't be, Lisa exclaimed. Mark and Lisa used different expletives. Neither Mark nor Lisa had ever met Julie. I had lost track of them once they got married, and that had been well before I met up with Julie. Sorry, Mark, but I'm going to have to ask you for a copy of that film. They both realized the implication, and I think they were a little lost as to what to say to me. Oh, damn, I am sorry, Pete. Of course, I'll run you off a copy on a CD. I had them transferred to the computer last year. Personally, we think the atmosphere is better when you see them on the big screen. But I suspect before long, everything will be on CDs or these new DVD things they're bringing out. Well, that was all there was to it. Mark ran me off a copy. I didn't sleep well that night, and I left for home as soon as I finished work on Friday evening. I had planned to travel home on Saturday, but I wasn't in any mood to sleep that night. I arrived home at some unearthly hour on Saturday morning after a long, slow drive back down to the West Country. My nerves were completely shot. I had no intention of killing myself on the way, so I crashed out on the sofa. Some hours later, I was awakened by the sound of Julie's voice. Pete, you scared the life out of me. I didn't expect to find you lying there. When did you get home? Why didn't you call last night? And what are you doing sleeping on the sofa? Julie demanded when she discovered me lying there in the morning. It must have been about 2:30, I replied, ignoring her other questions. Why didn't you come up to bed? I've missed having you to cuddle up to. I couldn't see much point in beating around the bush as inside I was hopping mad and only just managing to keep my temper under control, so I dived straight in. Is that a fact? Are you sure you haven't got anyone else you'd rather cuddle up to? That took Julie completely by surprise, but I figured I had some more surprises in store for her. What the hell is that supposed to mean? She demanded. Just what I said. Haven't you got some stud or other that you'd rather be with? Are you feeling all right? You're not making any sense. I could see that Julie was beginning to get more than a little annoyed with me, but she could never be as angry as I was with her. I slowly got off the sofa and walked over to our home computer that I had turned on when I'd arrived. At a touch on the mouse, the monitor flashed back into life. Julie, remember when my firm sent me to India all those years ago to help set up that new factory out there? Yes, you were gone over 6 weeks. They promised that would be the last time they would send you abroad. And whilst I was gone, your parents took the children away on a holiday for a couple of weeks, didn't they? Yes, but why bring that up now? What did you do whilst they were away, Julie? I've got to admit she was good. There wasn't any sign that I could discern that she had anything to hide. Nothing much, really, except I redecorated James's bedroom. You didn't go off yourself for a couple of days? Of course not. Why do you ask? What's this third degree all about? I clicked the start button on the media player. Julie looked at the computer screen with a blank expression on her face. Tell me, Julie, who's that guy you're sitting with by that swimming pool? What I can only call a look of surprise and curiosity came on Julie's face that then changed to what I took to be a look of bewilderment as she realized what she was watching. What the hell is that? Where did you get it? That isn't me. After that, we watched in silence until the film switched to the ballroom. It could be that the first little seeds of doubt were planted in my mind at this time. Her reaction was perfect for someone who hadn't the foggiest idea what was going on. But I had to take into account that Julie has always been a very good actress. Hey, she was a member of the local dramatic society after all, so I took her reaction with a pinch of salt. Well, that sure looks like you to me. Julie's face turned bright red as she watched the behavior of the two of them on the dance floor. God, Peter, I could never behave like that in public. Well, if it isn't you, who the hell is it? Julie was staring closely at the screen now. I haven't got the faintest idea, but it certainly isn't me. She does look like me, I'll give you that, but I can promise you it definitely isn't me. So you've got a twin out there that you didn't know about? It appears I must have, Peter, but I swear to you that isn't me. Well, the it must be, and it definitely isn't argument went on for the next half hour or so until our son James surfaced for the day. Then Julie and I held our peace for the rest of the morning until he went out to meet his girlfriend. Peter, you've got to believe me, that isn't me on that film, Julie said the moment the door closed. I've been thinking. Jean next door will tell you that I wasn't away from the house for more than a couple of hours at a time all the time you were in India. You know that I would have had to ask her to come in and feed the cats if I'd gone away for even one night. Having said that, Julie turned and went out of the back door. I sat in the kitchen trying to work out whether I was wrong in my first assumption that it had been Julie in Brighton with that guy. Julie returned about 10 minutes later with Jean in tow. Tell him, Jean. Tell Pete that I was home all the time he was away in India. That's right, Peter. I saw Julie every day while you were out in India. It was a long time ago, but if you remember, Julie and I used to have coffee together every morning back then. We did every morning until Julie started back to work again, Jean added. Well, really, that was the end of the discussion on the subject. I had Julie swearing that the woman on the film wasn't her, and Jean assuring me that Julie hadn't been away from the house for more than a couple of hours at a time. I'm not sure now how much I really swallowed the story, but I had no reason that I could think of to suspect Jean would lie to me, although I think I would have been more convinced if it hadn't taken Julie 10 minutes to come back with Jean. 10 minutes is plenty of time for them to get the story worked out. That night, against my better judgment and with a lot of willpower on my part, Julie and I made love. But as I lay awake in bed afterward, I found my mind wouldn't let me sleep. Things kept going around in my head. Jean was Julie's best friend. Could I really trust her to tell me the truth? In the following weeks, I'm not sure what happened, really. My trust in Julie had evaporated, and I found myself spying on my wife, searching her cupboards when she wasn't around, hunting out her old diaries, looking for something, anything. But I found nothing. If she was home from work just a little late, I was asking awkward questions. The closeness that I had always felt for her in the past had suddenly gone, just evaporated. I loved her, but in my heart, I felt I couldn't trust her. Things came to a head one day when I was going through my computer CDs looking for some old files. I suddenly realized the CD that Mark had given me wasn't there anymore. Julie, have you seen that CD that Mark made for me, the one with the woman I thought was you on it? I put it through the shredder. What the hell made you do that? Because it was disgusting. It upset me having it in the house. Julie's destroying of that CD got me thinking again. The woman certainly looked like Julie, but there was a question I hadn't really asked myself. Who was the man? To Julie's horror, I'd shown the video to a couple of our friends, and Wed had a good laugh over it, but they had all noted the remarkable resemblance the woman bore to Julie. I'm afraid my anger or distrust got the better of me. Why was that, Julie? I asked. Were you worried that if too many people saw that bit of film, in the end, somebody was bound to recognize the guy or have seen him around somewhere local? I don't know why I said that, but it was to turn out to be the question that brought our marriage to an end. Julie went at me, and the row between us that followed was loud enough for the neighbors to get worried enough to call the police. Later that evening, after the police left, I packed up some of my things and moved out of the house. The following Monday morning found the two of us in our solicitor's office. Julie apologized for losing her temper and asked me to return home, but I told her I couldn't see any way that we could put things back together. I was convinced that it was her and Mark's movie. The divorce went off surprisingly amicably, really. I found myself a flat in town and would see James several times most weeks. My daughter Ashley was away at nursing college, and the oldest one, Janet, was away at university, so it made little difference to them. I went to all James' school events, probably more than I had done before the divorce. To start with, Julie and I were extremely civil and polite to each other when we met, even if our meetings were a little strained. Julie kept sending me little notes through James asking me to reconsider things. Ashley, when she was home, kept telling me that her mother cried a lot. That didn't do much for my well-being, as I was, well, not exactly crying myself to sleep at night, but not far off it. If I'm honest, quite a lot of the time, I felt like a real heel. I know I was drinking far too much, and that resulted in my boss having a long, hard talk with me about it. So I was forced to take stock and pull myself together a bit. I thought about taking the pledge. I didn't swear off drink completely, but I cut down a hell of a lot on my consumption. Then one evening, when I picked James up from his after-school football practice, he told me that his mother had been out on a date with some guy the night before. The little notes had stopped a few weeks previous, so I figured that Julie had resorted to trying to make me jealous. Why else would she tell James she was out with another guy? I'm afraid it worked. I did get jealous, and that I couldn't stomach. So I think more as a kind of retaliation than anything else, I tried the dating game myself. You know, it was just a reprisal thing. I'll be honest with you, my heart wasn't really in it. I had to persist, though, as I wasn't going to let Julie get one up on me again. As time went on, Julie and I were getting less tolerant of each other, and that led to a loud guerrilla war breaking out between us. Unfortunately, the kids were playing piggy in the middle in that little game. I was making sure they knew about the girls I was taking out, including quite a few fictitious ones, I'll add, and Julie made sure they told me about every time she went out with a guy. What was even more frustrating for me was the fact that Julie was being quite devious about things. Apparently, she never let her men friends come to the house to collect her. I figured that was because James might recognize some of them, if they were any of my friends, which I suspected some of them were. Of course, I asked all the single guys I knew, but they all denied taking Julie out. Oh yeah, and I believed them. I'd seen the way they had looked at Julie over the years. Anyway, in the process, I think I lost quite a few of them as friends. My problem was that I couldn't live with Julie because I felt I couldn't trust her, but I still loved her, and now found I was having extreme difficulty living without her. It was a year after the divorce, and I was in such a state that I had already been passed over for one promotion at work that should have been mine. In fact, I think I was really on my way out of my job completely. I know that the quality of my work had fallen off a lot. My boss called me into her office one day and asked me if I would do a 6-month stint at our Birmingham office. Apparently, one of the managers up there was going on maternity leave, and they wanted me to run her department while she was away. Now, this wasn't really an offer. It was as near to an order as you can get. It was made clear to me that if I didn't take the placement, I would probably find I was out of a job before too long. If I took the placement, I think my boss thought I would have to either get my act together or get myself fired by the Birmingham office. Whichever happened, it took the problem of me off her hands. I can't blame her. She had been very tolerant of my shortcomings for some time. The children weren't happy when I told them I would be living away for at least 6 months. Surprisingly, Julie called me up and asked what was going on. I told her I would be back every couple of weeks to see the children, and she seemed satisfied with that. Birmingham wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. I lived in a nice hotel just a few hundred yards from the office. The staff was good and accepted me as the boss without any problems. I got on very well with a few of them, mainly my number 2, Maddie. Matilda was supposed to be almost at retiring age, to be honest. I suspected she was older than that. A widow, she apparently lived for her work. She was actually the obvious candidate for doing the job had been called up there to do, but she told me she had turned it down as she felt she was too old to take on the responsibility. And then there was Asha Kapoor. Asha, as everyone usually called her, was about my age, maybe 5 or so years younger, and obviously of Eurasian parentage. I found that I enjoyed Asha's company a lot. She was the complete opposite of Julie in looks. They were of similar build, but whereas Julie was blonde and very fair-skinned, Asha had black hair and quite a dark complexion. At first, she came over as a very shy person until she got to know you, that is. Then she appeared extremely forward and was always joking around. Over time, I gathered she had had quite a difficult life, not quite knowing whether she was British or Indian. Apparently, her mother had died when she was quite young, and she had been brought up by her father's sisters, who were very Indian in their outlook. Asha had gone to English schools and appeared to have a very British outlook on how a young woman should behave. I was to learn that she had been married a couple of times. Firstly, when she was quite young, only a teenager really, and at her father's insistence. I also gathered it was against her own better judgment. A marriage arranged by her father's family that had turned out to be a complete disaster and ended very quickly when her husband tried, ill-emphasized tried, to beat her for some reason or the other. As I understand it, Asha put him in hospital and promptly divorced him. After her divorce, Asha found herself estranged from her family. Apparently, it wasn't done for her to divorce a man the family had chosen for her. Then she somehow had gotten herself mixed up with some other guy, a complete loser. I have no idea what race the guy was, but apparently he was a very unsuccessful gambler who rapidly turned into an alcoholic, and within 3 years of them getting married, had very quickly drunk himself to death. This led to Asha, once she had got to know me better, watching my alcohol consumption very carefully and being quite vocal about it on occasions. I told you that she spoke her mind, and she was not afraid to tick me off if she thought I was overdoing things. Somewhere along the line, after her second husband's death, Asha met up with Maddie's son, who'd been in the army at the time. They must have been very into each other, but before they'd got around to tying the knot, he had been killed in Northern Ireland. Neither Maddie nor Asha went into details about his death, but as a result, Asha was apparently living, or rather lodging, with Maddie. Not seeing the children as much had the surprising result of me not thinking about Julie as much either. Not that much of a surprise to me because when I did see the kids, their mother always seemed to be the main topic of conversation. Apparently she wasn't dating anymore, or so I was told. Most likely run out of mugs, I thought. I think it was in the 5th month of my deployment in Broome that one morning I was called up to see the big chief at the office. He informed me that the manager I was standing in for had been in touch and told him that she was not intending to return to work after her child was born. He didn't enlarge on the reasons why he had other fish to fry. Then he went on to ask me whether I would take the position on permanently, for the time being at least was the way he put it. I thought that was an odd way for him to phrase it. I was forced to tell him I was not sure whether I could at that moment because I still had problems in my private life. The move north had given me a lot of time to think about everything. I was definitely lonely up there, and I was beginning to doubt myself. I was thinking that I might have been a little hasty in my reactions to that damned film of Mark's. Julie was still denying that it had been her at that Brighton hotel. He looked at me for a while without speaking. I could see he was mulling something over in his mind. "Okay, Peter, the bottom line, but please keep this to yourself for the time being. There's going to be some big changes around here in the next few months. We are relocating this office to Telford. There's not enough room to expand here as the company would like. The upper level of management have been informed of the move already, and a couple of them have made us aware of their intentions to retire early rather than move or commute to the new office. I've got my eye on you to replace one of them. I can offer you the job after you've gone back down south, but I would prefer it if you were on my team here to help with the move. I need to know who I can rely on." His statement took me by surprise, and I realized that the opportunity he was offering me wasn't to be sneezed at. But I also knew I'd been getting really melancholy about losing Julie and the life we lived together. I needed time to think. "Can you give me a week or so to think about this?" I asked. "Sure, if you like, Peter, but I definitely need to know one way or the other before the end of the month. That shouldn't be a problem. I hope I'll have things well and truly ironed out by then." I planned to talk to Julie the next time I went down to see James and the girls. I figured that if she wanted to try again, I was willing to give it a go. "Great. Now the next problem," the boss man said, opening a folder on his desk. "I know this is going to sound funny, but who in your department do you feel is the best candidate to take over from you? The sooner I decide who's going to run what department after the move, the better. Well, there's only one person really, and that's Asha. Maddie has more experience and is the obvious choice, but you know she's thinking of retirement and doesn't want the responsibility, but I'm sure she'll stay long enough to help Asha out while she settles in if need be. The pair of them are very close, Don. I'll speak to both of them later today. The rest of the week was a very good one for our office as we closed on a couple of good contracts. Friday evening, Maddie, Asha, and some of the other staff, along with their spouses, joined me for dinner at my hotel. After the meal, we sat in the lounge and had a couple of drinks together. They have a band there on Friday and Saturday evenings. So once the music started playing, some of us started dancing. Asha and I had a couple of dances together. It was around 10, and I was just coming off the dance floor with Maddie when she announced that she was going home. To my utter surprise, Asha told Maddie she would see her later, then grabbed my hand and dragged me back out onto the dance floor. "And just what is this all about, young lady?" I asked. "You always go home with Maddie." "Not tonight, I'm not," I thought, and Maddie agreed with me, that it might be a good idea if you and I spend a little time alone together. "You'll notice that all the others have left while you were dancing with Maddie. I think we thought that we should get to know each other a little better if you're going to teach me how to do your job. Don't be silly, girl. You can do my job standing on your head. I know, but there aren't many guys who would recommend me for it, what with me being a woman and all." Now, I knew that wasn't exactly what Asha was really alluding to, as the previous incumbent of the position had also been female. We both knew that there still was an undercurrent of racial prejudice around the office, no matter how some folks tried to deny it, and folks of mixed race often have trouble being accepted within any racial group. Nonsense, Asha, you were ideal for that job. Thank you, Peter. Now, can we cut to the chase? Let's go to your room. Wow, hang on a minute. I didn't recommend you for that job just so I could get into your knickers. Do I look dumb? If I thought you had any ulterior motives in the first place, I wouldn't let you get within 100 yards of me. Anyway, I'm pretty sure that that kind of guy would have propositioned me well before he recommended me for the job. You do realize there's more than one girl in the office who would have jumped into bed with you for that recommendation, and some of them are married. No, that isn't the reason I'm suggesting we get together. When he told me about the job, the boss said there was a possibility that you might not be sticking around for very much longer. Now, I know that you like me, and I like you. I've been waiting for you to make a pass at me ever since you came up here, but you haven't. So I thought, if I didn't get the ball rolling soon, I'd miss any chance I had. I'm flattered that you think that way, Asha, and I'll admit I find you very attractive, but I've got to tell you, I will most likely be trying for a reconciliation with my ex-wife when I go back down south next time. But I thought you divorced her because she cheated on you. I divorced her because I thought she had cheated on me, Asha. But as time goes on, I'm not so sure now. I only had a film that had been taken years ago showing a woman who looked very much like Julie dancing with some guy in a hotel. I was damn sure it was Julie at the time, but without any other evidence, the more that time passes, the more I'm thinking that I was most likely mistaken. She has always denied that it was her. Well, you know what they say, absence makes the heart grow fonder. Asha, I think you are a wonderful person. I really think I could fall in love with you very easily, but at the moment, I'm not really over Julie. Can I ask if things don't work out between us? May I give you a call? I'll be waiting, thanks. Now, I think I'd better call you a cab before we get ourselves into something that we could both finish up regretting. You don't have to, you know. Phil, Maddie's son, and I waited. And what happened? Some bloody nutcase with a bomb blew him to smithereens. Can't we just spend one night together? I won't say I'm not sorely tempted, Asha, because I am. But I really don't think that would be fair on you in the circumstances. Now come along, let's get reception to call you a cab. I escorted Asha to her cab, but before she got in, she threw her arms around my neck and kissed me. Just to give you some idea of what you're passing up, she said, grinding her body against mine. I carefully but gently pushed her away and helped her get into the car. Asha, don't kid yourself. I know exactly what I'm passing up, and I'll probably be kicking myself all night for doing so, but until I can make a commitment to you, I can't let myself take advantage of you, I said to her through the cab's open window. As she pulled away, the taxi driver gave me a look that told me he thought I'd lost my bloody mind. Asha is one sexy-looking lady. It was the following Sunday evening. It had become my habit to have a drink in the hotel's bar after dinner. I didn't keep any alcohol in my room, as that, I thought, would be tempting fate when I was feeling melancholy. I still wasn't the happiest guy in the world, and Asha's story about her second husband did play on my mind a bit. I was on a stool at the end of the bar when I spotted him coming into the lounge. There was no doubt about it in my mind about who he was the moment I saw him. He was the guy who had been in that film that Mark had taken. Seemingly without a care in the world, he casually looked around as if familiarizing himself with the layout of the almost empty lounge. Then he sauntered over and quite deliberately sat on the empty stool next to the one I was on. For a couple of minutes, I debated in my mind as to just what I was going to do next. Yeah, I did feel like punching the guy on the nose because seeing him in the flesh brought back the anger I'd felt when I first saw that film. But what the hell would that achieve besides getting me nicked for assault? I wouldn't even have the satisfaction of him knowing why I hit him until we got into court, so I just ignored him for the time being. "Nice weather we're having at the moment," he commented to no one in particular. Well, it must have been meant for me, as there wasn't anyone else within earshot. "Not bad for the time of year," I replied. "I don't like it too hot myself." "Anyway," American Mark had said, "for some reason I thought it more likely he was Canadian. I'm not sure why, just a gut feeling, and I guessed he must have lived in England for some time, as the weather is often the subject used to break the ice among strangers." You a commercial traveler? He asked casually. No, I'm on secondment to one of my company's branch offices just down the road. Clinton. Hey, you have me at a disadvantage. Have we met before? I don't think so, but I believe that is your name. Yeah, it sure is, but most folks call me Clint. Oh, is that what Julie calls you? Who? Julie, did you say? I'm sorry, but I don't think I can place anyone called Julie. Oh, she will be disappointed. I really didn't expect him to have any idea as to what I was talking about, as theoretically he wouldn't know me from Adam unless Julie had shown him a picture of me, and that I somehow doubted. Where would I have met her? In Brighton about 11 years ago. Yikes, that's going back a bit, but the only time I've ever been in Brighton was when I was on my honeymoon. I'm afraid I was concentrating on my new wife at the time, and I don't think I noticed any other women on that trip. Perhaps Gina, my wife, will remember her. She should be down in a minute. We can ask her. I don't know why, but I suddenly felt very unsure of myself. You were in Brighton with your wife? With my bride. We had planned on going to the Caribbean for our honeymoon, but there had been some trouble on the island we'd booked to go to, so at the last minute we settled for Brighton. It was quite pleasant, but a bit on the straight-laced side for Gina and my liking. We only stayed a couple of nights and then moved on to Southampton, a little less pompous and a lot more nightlife. He must have spotted her come into the lounge in the mirror behind the bar, because he swung around on his stool to face the entrance. Hi, babe. What took you so long? For a minute there, I thought you had dumped me. I looked over my shoulder and then almost fell off my stool at the sight before me. Walking towards us was Julie. But no, it wasn't Julie, if you understand me. At first glance, it was Julie, but there were subtle differences that told me it wasn't Julie. Holy Mother of God, was this the woman who had been in Mark's film? I can remember thinking, and then everything seemed to go black. Hey, fellow, are you all right? I could hear Clinton asking as I was coming back to my senses. I was lying on the floor with a cushion under my head. A very worried-looking Clinton was leaning over me, and I could see his wife, Gina, crouched down on the other side of me. Sorry, but I just had a bit of a shock when I saw your wife, I said to them. Hey, Clint keeps telling me that I'm drop-dead gorgeous. But that's the first time I've ever had that effect on a man, Gina cracked. For a minute, her accent had confused me. Then I realized there was that high-pitched Australian twang to her voice. Clinton helped me to get up, and we moved into some of the lounge armchairs. Do you do that often? Are you ill or something? Clinton asked. No, quite honestly, it was seeing your wife. She is the spitting image of my ex-wife. Hold on just a minute there. She's not the Julie you were talking about just now, is she? Unfortunately, she is, yes. Wow, I'm getting a very bad feeling about this. I thought you were being a little standoffish with me. Now, I'm getting a very nasty feeling that there has been some terrible misunderstanding somewhere along the line. The fact that your wife is now your ex-wife couldn't have anything to do with you thinking I had met her in Brighton by any chance. I'm afraid you're correct on that one as well. Holy cow, what's all this about? Gina asked. Oh, Gina, I'm sorry, I don't know your name, Pete. Gina, this is Pete. I gather that you and his wife, sorry, Pete, his ex-wife, look very much alike. You remember when we stopped in Brighton for a couple of nights on our honeymoon? From what Pete says, I gather that somehow you were mistaken for his wife, and that led to the end of his marriage. Have I understood you correctly there, Pete? Yeah, that's about it. Oh my God, you thought it was your wife and Clint together? Well, it wasn't your wife with Clint. It was me. What the hell are you going to do now? I haven't got the faintest idea. I've got to think this out before I do anything. I haven't had time to get my thoughts together yet. You realize meeting you two has been a bit of a shock for me. I should imagine it is, but what rotten bugger told you about Brighton in the first place then? Clint asked. People should really make sure of their facts before they go telling tales. Well, no one actually told me. I was visiting an old friend of mine, and they were on holiday at the same hotel when you were there. They were just showing me some of their old holiday films, and in one of them, you two featured quite prominently. Oh my, I bet that must have been George and Rosemary, Gina said. You remember them, Clint? The nice couple with all those kids. God, 6 children. 2 was enough for me. George had that damn camera running nearly all the time. I don't know how Rosemary put up with it. He left her looking after the children most of the time. You remember meeting them then? I asked. Oh yes, Clint and I only stayed a couple of nights, but Rosemary and I had some good laughs together while we were there. She was telling me how to keep Clint under control. She was quite a girl. Anyway, that isn't what's important. Your problem now is what are you going to do about Julie? I'm not sure how I'm going to approach the subject with her. I can understand what you must be feeling like. Finding out that you've made a mistake can be very embarrassing, and to have gotten divorced over a mistaken identity, I'm not sure how you should deal with that. I'm sure Julie must be very upset that you didn't trust her word. I sat back in my seat and looked at these two new friends that Id suddenly appeared to have made. They both seemed very genuine and very concerned about Julie and my plight. For the next hour or so, we talked about what I should do. Then Gina, who had been quiet for a while, said, "Look, Pete, I've got an idea. I know this is none of my business, really, but how about if I go down to Exeter before your next planned visit to see the children? You must have some idea of the places Julie normally goes to during the week. Maybe I could run into her by accident, if you understand me. And then, if we look as alike as you say we do, with any luck, she is going to put two and two together and realize who I am. I'll let her tell me all about it. Then if she wants to, she can introduce me to you over the weekend. That will make her feel good about herself. Then she's either going to forgive you or kill you. Oh, you'll have to eat humble pie for a while, I'm sure. But if we look as much alike as you say we do, I'll bet she'll understand," Gina suggested. "Would you mind doing that? I mean, Julie and my problems have nothing to do with you. Why should you want to get yourself involved?" I asked. "Well, in a strange way, I feel obligated. After all, Julie was mistaken for me. And of course, it isn't every day you get a chance to meet your own doppelganger, now is it? Now, when are you due to go and see the children again?" So the arrangements were made. The plan was that the following Wednesday, Gina and I assumed Clinton would go down to Exeter, where Gina would, with any luck, run into Julie at the local horse riding school. For as long as I could remember, Julie has helped with the riding for the Disabled Association on Thursday mornings. I could see no reason for her to have stopped doing that. Anyway, if things worked out as Gina planned, she thought it most likely that Julie would ask me to meet her on the Saturday evening, and where she suggested that we could, with any luck, sort our problems out. "No, Dad, she hasn't." Janet started angrily, but then suddenly stopped speaking again. "No, Dad, this isn't right. We all made a pact when you married Asha that we would never discuss Mother or what happened between the two of you. It was your idea, remember?" "Yes, I'm sorry, Janet," I replied, "but I still feel very angry about what she did to me, to us all, really. Although I must admit that I wouldn't have met Asha here, but for your mother's lying, cheating ways. I'm sorry. I guess it is your wedding, Janet. If you want your mother there, I won't object again. But for God's sake, will someone make sure I don't drink too much? Because I might well be able to keep a civil tongue in my head where your mother's concerned, but I'm not sure I could keep my anger under control around that damned a-hole boyfriend of hers." Janet made as if to say something else, but apparently changed her mind. I kissed my loving wife, and then I turned and hugged Janet. On the day of Janet's wedding, the weather smiled on us. Janet had been living with Asha and myself since she graduated, so the wedding was being held at our local church. There wasn't any favoritism about her choice to stay with us. It was just the fact that she had been offered a damned good job not too far from the house Asha and I had bought. It was quite a busy household, really, because once Asha's first child had been born, Maddie, now retired, had moved in as well. Maddie acted as a kind of housekeeper come nanny, and that had allowed Asha to return to the office. Having walked Janet to the altar, I took a quick look over my shoulder to smile at Asha and was pretty well gobsmacked to see her in deep conversation with Julie. Julie was actually holding our young child, but when I took my seat later in the service, Julie had moved to the end of the pew. I still had a distinct distrust of Julie and wondered what she was up to. I can't say I was too enamored to see that it was Julie and Maddie who escorted both Asha and my babies out of the church either. I wanted to say something to Asha about it, but figured I'd wait until later when we were not in such a public place. After the photo call, I was really surprised and somewhat annoyed to find that Asha had invited Julie to join us in our limousine for the short journey to the reception at a local hotel. I held my tongue, though I knew that Julie, like myself, had to be amongst the first arrivals at the hotel so that she could be in the receiving line with us. Julie chose that opportunity to say hello, but I ignored her. "Peter, now, if you're going to be silly and spoil Janet's day, I'll have this car take the children and me straight home," Asha chided me. "Good afternoon, Julie," I said to her with venom in my voice. That was to lead to Asha reading the riot act to me yet again after dragging me into the hotel's office on our arrival there. "Now cut it out, Peter. This is Janet's day, and I don't want you putting a damper on it for her. Damn it, I've had enough of this ridiculous pride thing with my own family. I don't want to see my new family fall apart because of your damn stupid pride. Julie cheated on you and you kicked her out of your life. But please, Peter, don't go kicking your children out with her. You've done miracles up to now with your idea of never discussing Julie or what she did or didn't do with the children, but you're going to have to meet and talk to her yourself one day, whether you like it or not. Julie's going to have to be at all kinds of gatherings with us over the next few years. Now's the time to start speaking and being civil to her, for my sake, please." I knew that Asha was right. She nearly always was, so I stood in the receiving line alongside my ex-wife, and she sat beside me during the meal and speeches. I even managed to remember to change the word "I" to Janet's mother and myself in my speech. As I sat down, Asha caught my eye and smiled at me. What she made of Julie taking my hand and kissing the back of it, I don't know. Asha couldn't have heard Julie say thank you to me. That confused me for a moment, but then I realized that from where she was sitting, Julie must have been able to read the original script of my speech, so she must have been aware of my impromptu editing. As you can imagine, I avoided dancing with Julie. After I danced with Janet's new mother-in-law, I pulled Asha onto the dance floor. My son James was dancing that one with his mother. The evening was enjoyable, and to be honest, although I knew that Julie was there, I hardly noticed her after a little while. Whether she stayed out of my way on purpose or not, I don't know. Asha and Maddie took the two little ones home early, but Asha insisted that I stay until the end, or at least until Janet and her new husband left or went to bed. That, I feared, would be pretty late because they were spending their first married night in the hotel's honeymoon suite. I had slipped outside to smoke a cigar. The youngsters were still living it up on the dance floor, and to be honest, the noise of their modern music was getting at me a bit. "They are two beautiful babies," a familiar voice said from behind me. I didn't look in her direction. I knew damned well who it was. "They are just like their mother," I replied. "Take that woman," I thought to myself. Look, I might have been trying to be civil, but that didn't mean I still wasn't angry with Julie. "Asha is very beautiful." "You made a good choice there," Julie agreed with me. "What do you want, Julie? Why have you followed me out here?" I asked, trying to sound as cold as my heart felt towards her. "To apologize to you, Peter." I looked in her direction then, hoping she'd see the hate on my face, but I think it was too dark. I couldn't make out her features. "A bit late, don't you think?" I suggested. "You're not kidding?" "I only wish it had never happened in the first place, or that I'd had the guts to own up and beg for your forgiveness when you brought that damn CD back from Darlington. God, I was stupid, and I'm so sorry. I thought that I could detect that Julie was crying, although I couldn't see in the darkness. How long did it go on for, Julie? How long were you taking the piss out of me behind my back?" "It was only once, Peter." "Haven't the children told you?" I almost burst out laughing. I know that Julie heard me kind of grunt when I barely managed to strangle my laughter. "It's the truth, Peter. I know that you won't believe me, but I never went near any drugs or anything after that weekend. I promise you." Now Julie had completely lost me. I had no idea what she was talking about. What did drugs have to do with anything? My mind was asking me. "What the hell are you talking about, Julie?" "Pete, can we go somewhere private and talk for a little while? I'd like to explain everything to you. I know it'll never make any difference to us now. It's much too late for that. I must have been mad not to have come clean with you in the first place, but I just didn't know what to do. All I could think of was to try to lie my way out of it like I did when I should have been telling you what actually happened. It was just that so many years had passed, and I'd been lulled into a false sense of security that you'd never find out. And then when I saw the video, I panicked. All I could think to do was lie and keep on lying. Both you and I have been drinking, Julie. I really don't think it would be a good idea for you to tell me anything tonight. I'm not sure that I could control my emotions, I said to her. Even in the dark, I could see the expression on Julie's face change. Don't get me wrong, Julie. I feel nothing but anger towards you and what you did to me. If and when I learn the full facts, I'd like to be in full control of my faculties. I've only ever come near striking 2 women in my life, and you are one of them. Julie took a step back. I think I can understand that. But who was the other? She asked. Your friend Gina, or whatever her name is. Look, Julie, if you want to allay your conscience, you've got a room booked here tonight, haven't you? Julie nodded. Right then, I'll meet you in the lounge at 10 tomorrow morning, and I'll give you an hour or as long as I can control my anger. Thank you, Peter. Oh, and I will have Asha with me, by the way. I don't go meeting wanted women without bringing my wife along. Touched I see, Julie replied. I deserve that, Peter. In the lounge tomorrow morning at 10, I'll be there. Then Julie turned and started to walk back inside the ballroom. Just before she went through the door, she stopped and turned to look back at me. Thank you, Peter. Good night, she said. I didn't reply. When I'd finished my cigar and went back inside, there was no sign of Julie anywhere. Good. It's about time you cleared the air with Julie over all this. You really do need to know what it was all about, Asha said when I told her I was meeting Julie on Sunday morning. You sound like you know what Julie's going to say, I replied. I do. The children told me years ago, huh? Why did they do that? Because they wanted me to tell you about what happened. They hoped that you might not hate her so much. But I told them that it was between you and Julie, and I wasn't going to get involved, especially with the way you went off at anyone who mentioned her name. Yeah, I've been a bit paranoid over it, haven't I? No, I don't really think so, Peter. You loved Julie. I know you did, and most probably you still do. That's the only worry I've got about you talking to her. I took Asha into my arms and kissed her. My love, how come you know me so well? And you're right on both counts. I think in my heart I do still hold some love for Julie, but I also hate her for what she did and all of the lies she's told. Don't worry, love. There's no way that she could ever come between us. I only agreed to see her again this morning because I have a burning desire to know what I did wrong. Asha pushed me away so that she could look into my eyes. What you did wrong? She asked, with a quizzical look on her face. Peter, you did nothing wrong. It was Julie who did something remarkably stupid and cruel. But there must have been something that I did or said to make her look elsewhere. No, Peter, believe me. From what the children have told me, it was nothing that you did. It was all down to Julie letting her friends talk her into doing something incredibly stupid. Then Julie found that things had gotten completely out of her control. I think it best that I don't say any more. You just go and hear what she has to say to you. I'm not going, Asha. We're going. I have no intention of meeting Julie alone. A smile came on Asha's face and she stretched up and kissed me. As I hoped, the hotel lounge was almost empty. There were only 2 other people in there besides Julie, James, and Ashley. As Asha and I walked in, James hugged his mother, then walked over and hugged Asha, then rather formally shook my hand. I noted that Ashley did not show any open form of affection toward her mother. It gathered through the grapevine that it had taken a long time for Ashley to forgive Julie if she really had, and although she did talk to her, she rarely visited. Ashley, after waiting her turn, kissed me on the cheek and then did the same to Asha. I noted a look of sadness come into Julie's eyes, most likely caused by Ashley's display of affection towards Asha. I suddenly realized that James was speaking to me. The bar. The manager said you can have some privacy in there, but we will be able to see you from the foyer. Julie had stood up while James was talking. She led the way into the bar that had one of those silk ropes across the entrance. An easel stood in front of the rope that bore the sign, Private Conference. I followed Julie to a table that was already adorned with a coffee tray on it. She sat down and began pouring us both coffees without asking me whether I actually wanted one. I sat opposite her without making a comment. "Thanks for coming, Peter," she said as she passed the coffee to me. I still didn't speak. This was her show. There were all kinds of questions that I wanted to be answered, but I'd convinced myself not to ask them. I was intending to let her hang herself first. "I'm going to repeat that. I'm really sorry for all the lies I told you. I'm not sure if I'm more annoyed with myself about those lies than I am about what I did with Clinton. I didn't realize what I was doing with Clinton until it was too late. But I told all of those lies to you in cold blood, and then I kept on lying to you, trying to convince you that nothing had ever happened." Julie was waffling. I almost broke my silence and said, "Get on with it, woman," but managed to hold my tongue. "But you don't want to know how sorry I am, do you, Pete? You want to know what happened and why." I still refused to speak. Julie looked down at her hands in her lap somewhere out of my sight. I figured that she was wringing them together. I'd seen her do that in the pub that day when Clinton and Gina were there. "Pete, when you went out to Mumbai for all that time, I got lonely." Julie suddenly raised her eyes to look into mine. "No, not for mail company or anything like that. I was just missing you." "Well, you know that Jean and I used to have coffee every morning together." "Well, it was in the second week that you were away, I think, that Jean's friend Melanie started joining us sometimes." I took in a deep breath at the sound of Melanie's name. We'd been at a party at Jean and Sam Clement's place one night when Sam had thrown Melanie and the guy she'd been with out of the house. Sam had caught them smoking weed in the back garden. As far as I knew, Sam had forbidden his wife to have any contact with the woman afterward. I know it was a bloody stupid thing to do, but one day the three of us went shopping together. On the way back, we stopped over at Melanie's house. For some reason, Melanie lit up one of her funny cigarettes, and, well, I'm not sure what happened after that. "Look, Pete, I can only think that I must have been affected by the fumes coming off that damn thing." Julie looked down again and stopped speaking. I dreaded what she was going to say next. I was feeling very down, and Melanie suggested I take a drag of her reefer thing. God, I don't know why I did, but I did. Although I choked a bit, I hadn't smoked cigarettes since I first got pregnant with Janet, I don't know. Somehow it did make me feel a little better. And well, Peter, the three of us smoked another one before I picked the children up that day. I'm sorry, Pete, but over the following couple of weeks, Jean and I went around to Melanie's house quite a few times and smoked pot. I really couldn't see that it was doing any harm. I just thought it was making me feel better and miss you a little less. I was having some wonderful dreams about you at night. I can remember that. But then my folks came down and took the children away on the trip with them, so I had no reason to rush home to the house until it was time for you to call, so I'd stay at Melanie's after Jean left. That's when it all got out of hand. Julie was not looking at me anymore. She was staring into space. Clinton turned up at Melanie's house one afternoon. He's a distant cousin of hers or something. Anyway, Melanie decided to have a kind of party to welcome him to the country. I didn't know that he'd just been released from prison in America for drug smuggling. I found out later he'd come to England to get away from the authorities prying eyes over there. I told them I couldn't stay for the party that evening because I had to be home for when you called. But look, Pete, those reefers of Melanie's had more effect on me than I'd ever realized. I thought I knew what I was doing. Clinton said he'd come around and fix the telephone, then I could go back to the party and call you from there. I could just tell you the home phone was out of order. Like the silly idiot I am, I let him do just that. Everyone went very quiet when I called you later in the evening. I'd drunk a lot of vodka by then, as well as being high on those damned weeds of Melanie's. Thinking back, I'm surprised you didn't notice that I was drunk when I called you that night. I remember the call distinctly, Julie. You were extremely emotional that night and very weepy, but I had no idea that you had turned into a drunk drug addict, I informed her. I wasn't an addict. I never got that far into it, Peter. Although I'll admit that I got a damn sight further in later that night. Julie started crying and didn't say anything more for a little while. I was feeling very uncomfortable. My instincts were telling me to put my arm around Julie and comfort her. You know, if it had been any other woman in the world, I probably would have done just that. But as it was Julie, I tried to ignore her and looked around the room. It was later that night that it all turned to hell. There were only about 5 or 6 people left when I noticed Clinton and Melanie doing something with a mirror. Then I saw Clinton take a straw and sniff something up his nose. Then Melanie did the same thing. Well, nearly everyone did. They invited me and this other girl to try some. I wasn't daft. I knew it was Coke, so I refused. But then some other guy said something like, "Try this, it's out of this world," and gave me and the other girl a cube of sugar each. The guy was off his head and kept on at me to eat that damn sugar cube. I thought he was nuts, and I think I ate the thing to shut him up. Then I really don't know what the hell happened. All I can remember is being in some kind of cloud cuckoo land where nothing made any sense. One minute I thought I was in bed with you. The next I was dancing with Clinton or someone. I really lost control of my mind, Peter. Honestly, it was me at that hotel in Brighton, but most of the time I was there as like a weird dream that I couldn't really remember at the time. I've had all kinds of flashbacks about what went on that weekend ever since. Everything is mixed up until I woke up on Monday morning and found Clinton, well, you can guess what he was doing. I pushed him off of me and demanded that he take me home. I really had no idea that I was in Brighton or how I got there, although since I've had flashes of memory about the car journey down there and exactly what had happened. "It won't wash, Julie," I finally said. "Sugar cubes bring acid to mind, and from my memory of the stuff, the effect you claim to have suffered doesn't appear to match. From my limited knowledge of LSD trips, you're out of it for a few hours and then have one bloody great down. Julie, you called me in Mumbai several times over that weekend. I didn't call you at all. Clinton did when he thought I was straight enough in my head, Peter. I was pretty well wasted on vodka and weed most of the weekend, and then he talked me into snorting coke to make me feel better about lying to you. When I woke up on that Monday morning, my mind was finally straight, and I realized just what I'd done. I told Clinton that he'd better take me home right away, or I'd call the police and tell them what had happened. I could see the tears streaming down Julie's face, but I still couldn't bring myself even to offer her a handkerchief. Clinton took me home and reconnected the telephone. Then he left, and I never saw him again until we set up that thing in Birmingham with Gina. That I find hard to believe, Julie. The bit about not seeing Clinton again, I mean. It's true, Peter, honestly. Look, I know that I've lost you. You're married to Asha and have little ones to think about. I know that whatever I tell you, I'm never going to get you back. I have no reason to lie to you anymore, Peter. I can't get on with my life until I've told you the truth. After you came home from India, I thought you would know what I'd done, but as the weeks went by, you were your normal loving self. More so, really, because you'd been away. I was having kittens as well until my next period came. Clinton didn't use any protection, and I was in no condition to remember to take my birth control pills. It had all faded into a half-forgotten nightmare until you came back with that damn piece of film that your friend gave you. I can tell you it was that bit of film that really shook me. When you first showed it to me, I honestly couldn't remember most of it. But I was soon having nightmares again, and I found I could remember much more than I originally did. So many times after you'd left for work in the mornings, I ran into the bathroom to be sick. Anyway, Pete, that's about it. That's what happened, and I'll curse myself for the rest of my life for being so stupid. I've told the children everything, so they know how smoking just one little reefer can get out of hand. All I can say to you is that I'm sorry. It's not quite all, Julie. If you say that you never saw Clinton again, how come he turned up in Birmingham? Are you trying to tell me that it wasn't him you were going out with after we separated? I asked in as sarcastic a sounding voice as I could muster. I never went out with any men after we separated, Pete. I've never been out on what you might call a date with a man from the day you left. I was going to a shrink and a support group for abandoned wives. Pull the other one, Julie. It's true, Pete. I have nothing to gain by lying to you now, she said in a pleading tone of voice. From the look in Julie's eyes, I do believe she was telling the truth. I'll admit I was trying to make you jealous. I did myself up as much as I could and led young James on to believe that I was going out with a man. He told me that you were dating and... Oh, damn it. I thought you'd get jealous and come running home, but you didn't. Then you took that job up here and, well, it all fell apart, didn't it? No, Julie, if you ask me, it all fell apart the day you smoked that first reefer. You're so right, Pete. I was a bloody fool, and don't I know it now. Anyway, then Teresa came over from Australia to visit the family, and I got that stupid idea about conning you yet again. Melanie wasn't hard to find, and she soon led me to Clinton. He didn't want to play at first, but Melanie told me that he was wanted in the States under his real name, so I put some pressure on him that way. Teresa thought the whole thing was a hoot. How did you know that Gina wasn't her real name, by the way? The shipping label on her case said Teresa Noble, Sydney, Australia. Julie, I lived in that hotel for months, and most of the staff became my friends. Yeah, I never thought about that. Anyway, it didn't turn out to be that much of a hoot for Teresa. She picked up something nasty from Clinton. That'll teach her. I told her not to let the maggot touch her. Anyway, we didn't fool you for a minute, did we? Julie finally asked. Not really, Julie. To be honest with you, that little scam you attempted was the biggest mistake you ever made. And boy, am I glad that you made it. Goodbye, Julie, and good luck in the future. I'll treat you as someone that I used to know. All right. Do you accept my apology, Peter? Do you mean, do I forgive you? No, I don't. I don't think I ever will. I got up and walked out of the bar. Asha came over and put her arms around me. Don't ask, I said to her. Then, after saying our goodbyes to James and Ashley, we left. Julie got married again about 3 years later. It only lasted a couple of years and wasn't too good a marriage as far as I understand. James went down there and physically threw the guy out in the end when he found out the guy knocked Julie about. For some reason, 5 years after that, Julie was run down by a bus in the high street. Apparently, she stepped off the curb right in front of the thing. Her blood alcohol level was over the limit to drive a car, but the accident was put down to misadventure. Maddie had a stroke a while back, but she still lives with Asha and me. Asha stopped work to look after her and the children. We don't need her money anyway, now that I'm the manager at the Telford office. Life goes on. Thanks for tuning in to this incredible story of deception and heartbreak. What would you have done in his shoes? Let us know in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more unbelievable stories. Until next time.